From the heart of Virginia to the thrill seekers around the globe, welcome to the epicenter of sports betting bliss, the Gamblers Gazette Podcast. Join the dynamic duo, your host Michael and the legendary Uncle Frank, two generations united by the adrenaline of the game and the buzz of the bet. Dive into heart-stopping match recaps, top picks of the week, and betting tips that could turn your luck. Whether you're placing a bet, analyzing the odds, or just here for some hearty sports banter, Gamblers Gazette is your one-stop destination. Kick up your feet, tune in, and immerse yourself in the world of sports and bets. Welcome to Gamblers Gazette, where every bet tells a story.
What's up?
Hey, welcome back to the Gamblers Gazette. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. How are you? It was a crazy week of football.
Wow. Yeah, it was a lot of good games on Saturday, and started off pretty good on Friday night and Saturday morning, the noontime games, and then it went downhill a little bit from there.
Yeah, for sure. I would say we did pretty good when it came to college football, but a little bit rougher when it came to NFL. But just on outside of that, I had a great time watching the games. Being in Texas, it gave me the opportunity to go out and actually experience what it was like to watch University of Texas play out and about in the crowd. I went to a nice little bar down the street that you're able to walk to and waited in a long line and watched the game with probably 1,000 to 1,500 other, I would say other now because I'm kind of assimilating into the area, other Texas fans. And it was really interesting to watch. Every time a touchdown was scored or every time a big play happened, they all got up and cheered. So it was really fun to watch and definitely a good time. And I think that they're officially turning me into a Texas fan.
Well, I tell you what, after watching that game against Michigan, yeah, they are the real deal, like we said in the podcast last week. Yeah, I mean, but let's start with a couple of games before we talk about the Texas game.
Yeah, let's just go through our record here. Let me, we can just see how we did and what we're looking for so far with our recaps here. So the legendary great Uncle Frank started off with college football 12-9. I mean, all we're looking for right now as we get into the swing of things, as the seasons really kick off, is to be over that 500 number. So I would say so far with college football, you're over that 500, 12-9.
Yeah, I'll take it. There was a couple games Saturday that were very close. We won that Oklahoma State game, which was a fantastic game against Arkansas. Double overtime, Oklahoma State won 39-31. So we covered that one, and we got the over in that one, correct?
That's correct.
Nice. And the one that I was a little shocked on was the Iowa State game. I really saw Iowa. I mean, they did play great defense, and they kind of gave it up at the end, and Iowa State came back for a 2019 win. I think I lost both of those. I had Iowa -2 and the under. I think you won the over on that.
Yeah, you had Iowa -2.5, and you had the under 35 there. I had Iowa over the 35, but I had them or the game over the 35, and then I had Iowa at -2.5 as well. It was really not a great game for Iowa at all. But my biggest upset, in my opinion, was that Kentucky versus South Carolina.
Wow.
I was so close to picking South Carolina in that game, just to cover. I mean, they were 10-point. Kentucky was a 10-point favorite, and they got stomped. But I think there's some great upsets this week, which contributed to our record. But I'm pretty happy with how I fared so far this season with 14-7.
Oh, that's a great record. I think you're doing awesome.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I did not see that Kentucky game. That was crazy. And you had texted me and said, "Oh, I was gonna go with South Carolina, and I picked Kentucky." Never crossed my mind.
For
I
sure.
saw South Carolina struggle with ODU, just beat them the week before, and then coming into a really good Kentucky score game, and they totally dominated that game. Did not
Absolutely.
did not see that one coming, so I lost that one. The other one I really enjoyed watching was Dion get his ass kicked.
That was a good one. Yeah.
28-10. I think they led 28 nothing at the half, so Colorado shut them out in the second half, but it
I
was a
saw that one
really
coming.
nice. Yeah, we both picked that one.
Let's move into our recap for the NFL games. A little not as great for us so far on the NFL games. We were 5-4 in those games. We started off with the Kansas City game. I mean, what a great game that was. Came down to the last second in a toenail, for that matter. In the back of the end zone, likely was so close to catching that ball, which would have gotten me the outright win with the money line pick there. You had the -3, got that one right. You started off high at 2-0, so we thought that we had a great start to the week, but then we went 5-4 after that. Tell me what you saw and your biggest surprise there.
Well, the Eagle game played out exactly like I thought it would. I mean, I think I texted you at the end of that game. It was like we had the script. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it came right down to the end. It was back and forth. Unfortunately, Jordan Love went down with an injury. I think on the second to last play of the game. So they won there. I had the Kansas City game, and then it came to Sunday, and I
Yeah,
started going down a hill a little bit Sunday. But Sunday, I gotta say, Vegas picks these lines, and how close are they? I think I lost three of the games I lost Sunday were by either a half a point. I think
yeah.
one of them was, and by
Six
a
and
point.
when we picked Buffalo was at 6.5. They lost, or they won by 6, and then you had Texans. They won by I think they won by 3 on the dot or something like that. So we were so close on all those games. I mean, it was right on the line, but hoping still above that 500, and we're hoping to improve week after week is our number one goal.
I think the game of the week though had to be Detroit and the Rams. We called that one. Rams. I mean, even with Laporta and Amon St. Brown not doing much,
Yeah.
he still came out with a win in overtime and covered in that game. So I'm an Eagle fan. My second team is Detroit, so happy to see them get off to a good start.
Yeah, let's move into a little bit of a recap of the Texas versus Michigan game. I mean, I spoke about it briefly being out and watching it in Dallas, and it was such a great game. But honestly, Texas is one of the strongest teams I've seen in college football in a long time.
Yeah, they have all the pieces, right? They have Ewers, quarterback. By the way, went 24 for 36, 246, and three touchdowns, no picks. And it seemed to be his go to guy was Gunnar Helm, who had 7 catches for 98 and 1 touchdown.
Yeah,
Defense looked awesome. Stopped the rush for Michigan, couldn't do anything in the passing game. And I think they picked Warren off twice. So, yeah, they're the real deal, and the new rankings came out, and they're up to number 2.
wow,
We could make a case for 1, but Georgia did beat Clemson handily in the first game of the year.
for sure.
So Texas sitting at number 2 is nothing to sneeze at. So I like it.
Yeah, right now we got Georgia number 1, Texas number 2, Ohio State at number 3, Alabama at 4, and to round out the top 5, we have Ole Miss. And honestly, looking really strong down the line a little bit is Tennessee. Tennessee played
Wow.
great this week, and I definitely think they can make that push to get into that top 5. It doesn't really matter anymore with the extended playoff field, but they're looking really good and strong here.
Another game we called. We both
Yeah.
said Tennessee was going to go in there and NC State wasn't going to have a chance. And what was the final? I think it was like 51-10 maybe, or something like that.
Absolutely.
Totally went in there and just destroyed them. So
What are you seeing? what are you seeing when it comes to Quinn Ewers and the chase for the Heisman so far?
Well, Quinn Ewers has moved up in the Heisman rankings, like you have on the screen there. He's now the top candidate. He's, I mean, Texas, they got all the guys, and now they have the number one prospect, or not prospect, but number one running in the 2024 Heisman. You got Jackson Dart, Ole Miss right there, Cam Ward. Came from Incarnate Word, then went to Washington State, and now is down in Miami and doing a great job for that team. Carson Beck, Georgia, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon. So they're all right there, but right now I don't think it's close. I think Ewers, well, if the season ended today, but it's only a couple games in, so let's not give it to him just yet. But
Yeah,
he's right there at the top.
Yours is looking great, and I think the key to that, like you mentioned briefly a moment ago, is the ability to have receivers that make plays. I mean, you have Helm that's went 7 for 7 this week, like you said, for 98 yards, and then
Yeah.
beneath him, what would seemingly be their top receiver is Isaiah Bond, went 5 for 3 for 3 for 5 for 51 yards. I mean, that is a great standing. 6 for 6 for Golden, below him for 41 yards. I mean, just an absolute killer of a receiving core that he has behind him. So those are really the keys. It's the whole team that play into these guys getting up to the top of this leaderboard here at the end of the season. But he's got the pieces around him to make a good final push.
I tell you, it's an exciting time for you to move down to Dallas in Texas and only have it's a 3-hour drive to Austin to go see these guys.
Yeah, 3 hour drive. I actually have tickets to the Georgia 1 seed versus the number 2 seed Texas game on October 19th. So I'll be in the stadium for that one. And then we also had a new thing open up here about 2 weeks ago in Dallas, where it's a full IMAX arena for football games. So you go in there and you can sit in the stands. You actually buy a seat, and it feels like you're inside the game. So it's really cool. I'm going to try that out here coming up. I think they have I forget the name of the game. I know you know all the names, but it's it's one of the big ones out here. Oklahoma versus somebody out here.
Oklahoma and Texas, the Red River rivalry.
Yeah, Red River rivalry. That's what it is. Yeah,
That's
so
in Dallas, correct. Yep.
Yeah, they have that game. I can't afford tickets to it, but they have it for $50 to watch it in the IMAX arena. So I'm gonna check that out. That's coming up in like 2 weeks, I believe. So
maybe Uncle will Venmo you a few dollars to get to the game.
You don't have enough for that. So let's jump into our picks though for this week. We got to start off here with some college football, just like every week.
Arizona, Kansas State. They play Friday night, Friday the 13th. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a good one. I mean, we have two ranked teams here going at it. It's going to be, honestly, with the start to the season was so strong. We have a little bit of a lull this week, but this is one of the best games that we're going to see here. And what do you see playing out here?
Well, first of all, this is the first meeting. I like starting off with these years, and first meeting since 1978.
Wow,
46 years. Arizona right now has the top wide receiver. FBS leads the FBS with 315 yards, 4 touchdowns. That would be Tutorio McMillan. They have this kid Noah Fafita who's the quarterback, and I've watched him over the last year or two, and this guy's got a good arm. He kind of reminds me of Marcus Mariota in his prime at Oregon, not when he was in the NFL.
Right.
But yeah, good arm. Likes to go downfield with the ball. KSU, they also have a good quarterback, Avery Johnson. Good running game with DJ Giddens. And they had a nice comeback win against Tulane last week. So I see this being a pretty good game, but it's under the lights at Kansas State in Manhattan, and the spread is 7.5. That half point, I hate that half point. I think Kansas State gets it going this week. They did get down to Tulane and had to make a comeback last week. I think they're too strong for Arizona. Arizona, not that great a team on the road, better at home. I'm going to go K-State and -7.5. Can you hear me, or are you muted?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You were muted when you were coughing.
Gotcha. I said I'm taking Arizona here versus Kansas State at plus 7.5. They are offense is able to stick with them and really get into the defense of Kansas State. I understand that they have a strong defense, but I definitely think that Arizona State's able to pull this one out at plus 7.5. Not Arizona State. Arizona's able to
Arizona.
pull this out. Yeah,
Yep.
at plus 7.5.
Okay. What do we have next?
All right. Moving into the next one, we got LSU versus South Carolina. And we also are picking the over-under in this game as a little bit of a surprise bet here.
All right. What do you see? You could lead off with this one.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina had a great game last week. I definitely think they're a stronger team than people are giving them credit for. I mean, they were 10-point dogs to Kentucky, and they were able just to completely demolish them. So I definitely think that they are able to stick with it closer than people think. But at the same time, LSU is LSU. So I don't know. This is going to be a tough one. I'll let you make your pick first while I decide.
Well, LSU has beaten South Carolina 8 straight. LSU has a quarterback named Garrett Nussmeier, has 8 touchdowns, only 1 pick. They have a really good running back, Kyron Lacey, 12, or actually the wide receiver, 12 receptions, 159 yards, 4 touchdowns. Here comes another LSU receiver. Rushing the ball has been an issue, though. They struggled with Nichols last week, LSU.
Yeah.
23-21, I believe it was in the third quarter, and then I think they scored 21 straight to end the game, and they came nowhere near covering. They haven't been very good this year and hard to figure out. I'm going South Carolina plus 7 here.
Yep, me too. I was going to say that I definitely think they surprised me last week, and Shane Beamer's really got his team working. I mean, legendary dad as a coach. He's really really coming into his own. He's been there for a few years now, but I think he's finally put together the recruiting class that he's wanted over those past couple of years, and I think they're able to pull out a really close game this week. It might be a 3 or 4 point victory for LSU. So, yeah, give me South Carolina at plus 7. And what do you have right now for the over/under?
Over/under in that one, is that the one we talked about? I think that was 49.
Yep, 49 in this one.
You pick it. I picked the first one.
Yeah, I'm going over in this game. I think that in order for our first bet to come true, saying that South Carolina is going to keep it close, they've got to score a lot of points. So I think that's going to cause the game to go over.
I think a big key here is the quarterback for South Carolina, Sellers. I mean, he looked pedestrian in the first game against ODU and then looked great last week.
Yeah.
So which kid shows up for this one? Obviously, LSU is a better defense than Kentucky has a good defense too. So, and LSU is just so hard to figure out. I'm gonna go under 49 here.
Wow, we're taking a lot of different bets here. But let's move on to the next one. Alabama versus Wisconsin. I mean, I did say at the beginning that this might be a little bit of a lull in the week of football, but with a minus 16 favorite for Alabama, this game might be closer than we think.
Yeah, it's up to 16. Is that what you have?
Yep, 16.
16 points? Okay. This is only the third time these two schools have met. Last time they met was 2015.
Wow.
Wisconsin at home is very good defense. It just looks weird, Alabama going to Wisconsin. That just doesn't happen. Well, obviously, it doesn't 3 times in history.
Yeah.
With that said, Jalen Milroe, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Jam Miller is running the ball well. Ryan Williams, 207 yards, receiving 3 touchdowns. I think it's hard. I mean, Wisconsin is always just, their offense is just average.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing here for them to win and to hold it under the 16 spread is they're going to have to play out of their minds on defense. That's
For
the
sure.
only way I can see this happening. With that said, I'm going Alabama, given the 16.
Yeah, I'm giving Alabama given the 16 as well. The only way that they're able to keep this in within those 16 points is if they have like a Fresno State kind of showing that they did week 1 against Michigan. I don't know if Wisconsin has that in them, if they're as disciplined as Fresno State is, but yeah, give me Alabama at that minus 16. I mean, well, we didn't include it in our slide, but Jalen Milroe is number 6 in the Heisman Trophy. He's right underneath that top 5 that we gave, and arguably, I think he's better than Gabriel. So
I do too. Although I have to say I haven't watched much of Oregon this year.
I have.
I've watched a lot of Alabama, so I might be a little biased here, but I think Milrose should be right up there in the top 5.
Yeah, not to go back onto what we were just, not to revert all the way back to our Heisman talk, but yeah, Gabriel is spending the entire, like I said, the big thing about Ewers is he has the team around him and he's able to really up the points and the status that he needs. The thing about Gabriel is he doesn't have a typical offensive line for Oregon. He's being sacked like crazy. I saw a stat earlier that last year Oregon had the least amount of sacks. They had 10 sacks for the entire year on what's his face, on Bo Nix. And then the next closest team was at 19. They had 5 sacks in the first half with Gabriel out there for your Oregon. So I think with that being said, I think Milrose should be up in that top 5, and Gabriel, for no fault of his own other than a bad offensive line, should drop down outside of that. But anyway, let me get off my soapbox and just say Alabama at minus 6 or at minus 16.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next one here. We got Boston College at Mizzou. This is going to be an interesting one.
Mizzou, a top 25 matchup. BC sits at 24 and Missouri's at 6.
Wow.
Missouri is a tough team at home, but I have a few statistics here. Boston College quarterback Tom Castellanos, 340 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks.
Wow.
Running back Trayshawn Ward has 132 yards and 1 touchdown, and some guy named Lewis Bond, 105 yards and a touchdown so far this year. They beat FSU, we remember, on, I guess that was Labor Day night, right? Or no, back in late August. 28-13.
Wow.
The spread in that game was the same spread in this game. Missouri has, a pretty good pretty good offense. But they played Murray State and they played Buffalo. And they've beaten them by a combined score of 89-0. So they haven't been tested. BC has a pretty good Bill O'Brien offense coming into Mizzou this week. I think the BC offense will be able to hang with them. And Missouri will put up some points too, but I think it's going to be closer than 17. Give me BC plus 17.
I'm taking BC plus 17 as well. And I think there's another thing that we need to talk about here. I know we did last year on last year's podcast, same week as this, but Boston College participates in a trend each year called the Red Bandana Trend, or the Red Bandana Game. This follows 9/11 to honor one of their individuals who passed away in the falling of the towers, who wore a red bandana and saved the lives of many folks that were affected in the terrorist attacks. So they always show up. They play better. They have neater uniforms. They have something on their chest to play for in an honor of an individual. So that always just gives them a little bit of an extra spark, and it's always nice to see. And I never root against them in a week that they are honoring a fallen alumni. So give me Boston College at plus 17 here.
Yeah, and you mentioned that story last year, and I'm glad you brought it up. We're recording on Wednesday night, 9/11, so yeah, good night to bring that up.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the next game here. We have, this is going to be another good one here. What do you see?
Yeah, Washington State versus Washington, the Apple Cup game.
You always have those names right
They
at
always have
hand.
the names.
Yeah.
Washington has a quarterback named John Mateer, 467 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a pick. He's also a dual threat quarterback. He leads the team in rushing with 252 yards, 2 touchdowns. Washington has a transfer from Mississippi State, Will Rogers, 511 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. What am I trying to say here? Both teams are 2-0. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored.
Yeah.
But with that said, this game is actually in Washington. I'm going Washington -5.
Oof. Man, that's going to be a tight one. I'm going Washington -5 as well, but this is going to be a really really tight game. I could see it really going both ways, but yeah, give me Washington at -5 as well. Offense is so strong, and I think they're going to put them down here.
Yeah. It's going to be a good game. Both teams are 2-0. They really haven't been tested, either team, but yeah, this should be a fun one to watch.
For sure. Moving on to the next one, another actual good one as well. Maybe I misspoke at the beginning that there's going to be a little bit of a lull this week. We got Texas A&M versus Florida. What are you seeing in this one?
All right,
Aggies versus Gators.
This is a crazy one because both teams right now are underperforming.
Yeah,
they're both 1-1. A&M lost to Notre Dame in the first game, and Florida got whooped by Cam Ward in Miami in the first game. And then I think they both beat pretty easy schools last week. Florida has a quarterback. His name is DJ Lagway. And they have actually 2 quarterbacks that they play. Graham what's his name? Graham Mertz, 6-year college veteran. And everyone in Florida wants Bill Napier, the coach for Florida, to just stick with this DJ kid who's a freshman or a redshirt freshman, or they're going to run him out of the stadium. So I read Graham Mertz is going to start the game, but I bet he's not in there for that long because Florida fans will want the other guy. I think if DJ plays the full game, from what I read, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
I like Florida here. I like Florida and the money line. They might win this game. Texas A&M hasn't impressed me at all this year.
Florida and the money line. That's crazy. What do you have as a spread in this one? I don't think there's any way.
Texas A&M -4.5.
Yeah, give me Texas A&M at -4.5. There's no way. Texas A&M, yes, they haven't shown how what they usually are each year, but Texas A&M is still Texas A&M. I think they're able to win this one by at least 4.5 for sure.
Going to the swamp.
They're going to the swamp. It's fine, but Texas A&M is a stronger team, and they're able to.
Said, both our picks. I mean, you could 100% be right. Both of these teams, it's hard to figure out. It's like the South Carolina team. Which team is going to show up this week? The one that killed Kentucky last week, or the one that won barely the week before?
Right.
Same with Texas A&M and Florida. Texas A&M could come in and be like, "Wow, Florida really does suck," and beat them by 20.
Right.
But I just like Florida at home, and I think the fans will be behind them, and I think they may run out of the swamp with a win.
Well, I guess we will see. I mean, we're having a lot of different picks this week on these games.
We agreed a lot last week, so we got to be different this week.
I know. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got, what is this? What's the name of this one? The Backyard Brawl?
The Backyard Brawl. West Virginia at Pitt.
Wow.
West Virginia lost to Penn State week 1 and then had a nice win last week. Pitt is 2-0.
Wow.
And they have a high-flying offense this year. They have a quarterback named Eli Holstein, 638 yards in 2 games.
Wow.
6 touchdowns, 2 picks. And he's the first freshman or redshirt freshman to have back-to-back 300 games since 1989.
Wow.
So Pitt wants to throw the ball. That's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia wants to run the ball and should be able to run the ball against Pitt.
Right.
And as Pitt, or does West Virginia slow the game down and, put the air attack of Pitt on hold? I mean, that is probably the game plan. Rushing is the game plan, the run game for them. But I think the passing attack may be just a little bit better.
For sure.
Here's a stat. Pitt was the 131st out of 133 FBS teams in pace last year.
Wow.
Which means how quickly they're moving the ball and getting plays in. What do you think they are this year so far? 15.
15. How do you make that much of a change?
They're getting the ball. That's Tennessee-like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee's probably number one. Tennessee turns the ball around quickly when they're on offense. That's why they can get so many offensive plays in. But can West Virginia slow that pace down? I don't know. I'm gonna go Pitt here and +3.
Wow, I'm taking the opposite. I'm taking West Virginia at -3. Their defense is too strong. I know we just had this whole conversation about it, but Pittsburgh is unable to keep up here, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think West Virginia is able to hold them down. I mean, they held Penn State to 34 points. Granted, they weren't able to score, but that's the great offense of Penn State, which Pittsburgh cannot compete with. So, give me West Virginia at -3.
All right. We also have an over-under in this one, correct?
Yeah, we do. And the over-under right now is sitting at 64.5, which is a lot of points.
You pick what you pick first.
Yeah, and in order for my first, like I said earlier, in order for my first pick to be correct, I think I got to go with the under here. That meaning that West Virginia has got to keep Pitt down. They've got to play strong defense here. They've got to stop the pass. They've got to do all these things in order to win by 3. I don't think they win in a shootout here. So give me the under. That's 64.5.
I'm taking the complete opposite. I see shootout written all over this game. I'm going over.
Wow. I don't see that at all. I actually have I'm very confident in my pick on this one. But we'll see. Sometimes I'm not very confident. Like I said last week, I wasn't confident in the Eagles pick or something like that. This one, I have a pretty good feeling about, but we'll see.
Okay.
All right. Next one, we got Maryland versus Virginia. Two schools that are pretty close to each other. What are you seeing in this one?
Both quarterbacks had good games last week, although Colangio threw a couple of picks. Maryland came up short to MSU 27-24, and UVA had to put 14 points on the board to beat Wake 31-30. A couple of streaks here that, in my opinion, I think will continue. So you'll be able to figure out my pick. Maryland has won 13 straight against non-conference opponents. UVA has lost the last 7 September games in a row as an underdog, and Maryland has covered in 4 straight against the ACC. I'm going with Maryland here, and the winning track they should stay on track with those streaks.
So I have them at -2.5 right now for Maryland.
Yes.
I see the same happening. Maryland looked pretty strong last week. I mean, we both picked against them last week in their game versus Michigan State, but they look strong, even though they lost there 27-24. But they did look pretty strong there, and I definitely think they're able to hold steady with UVA here. Give me Maryland at -2.5 as well. I think they're able to pull this one out.
Okay. I think that wraps up our picks for college. Let's move into some NFL.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a high flying offense game here.
I hope so, because I got 2 players going in the game.
Oh yeah, me too. I got quite a few. Well, actually, no, I don't have many this year. I get my teams confused last year. I got Stephon Diggs, but he isn't on.
Didn't
Isn't
you have
on.
Waddle last year, too?
Was that?
Didn't you have Waddle
Oh
last year,
yeah, I
too?
did. I did have Waddle last year, but I was thinking that Stephon Diggs was on the Bills this year, and the way that he's looking so far this year on Houston, they might wish he was because he scored 2 touchdowns for me last week, which was nice. But so far in this game, we are at a 1.5 point favorite for the Dolphins. I mean, that's that's a close one.
It's a close one and a little weird.
Hmm.
Josh is 11-2, including playoffs in his career against Miami.
Yeah.
The only games he lost by 6 in his first game that he played against him in 2018 and by 2 in 2022. I think that was the Tua game that he went out with a concussion and he was drinking from a straw that night.
Eating his pork chops
That
for breakfast.
Yeah, something like that. But Josh has over 3,300 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, and 643 rush yards.
What?
2 concerns that maybe why it's a -1 here. Miami's favored. Josh suffered a injury on the non-throwing hand, and maybe that it's a short week and they're on the road going to Miami. Give me Buffalo and the money line.
Money line, get a little bit of extra value there. I'm taking the opposite here. I'm thinking the Dolphins are going to pull this one out. I mean, Tyreek looked great last week. Waddle looked great last week. I mean, the whole team was really clicking, and with A-Chain and Mostert back and healthy, they have 1-2 punch at running back. And Tua looked excellent. Even use his feet a little bit. They get out of some situations. So give me the Dolphins at -1.5, and I definitely think that we have the over/under pick on this one as well. It's over under 49. I think it's going to go over in this one. It's going to be a little bit of a shootout here.
I do too. And Mostert and Achan are banged up a little bit. I'm not sure if Mostert's going to play.
I saw that he was playing.
Is he playing? I thought he was held without. They have a third guy named Jeff Wilson, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
He'll fit right in. It'll be like Mason taking over for CMC. I mean, he's a pretty good back too. So
Yeah.
all right, so we differ again.
We differ again on that one. Let me just actually double check on Mostert. They just released their official injury report. Yeah, the only people I have out right now are. Oh yeah, Mostert out. Yep. So Mostert is out. So A-Chain is questionable. And then we got a couple guys on the defense that are questionable as well, but are looking to play, and Jalen Ramsey and Jalen Phillips there. But so Mostert is out, but granted, the third guy is great, and
Wilson
A-Chain.
will fit in.
Yeah.
If you want to keep your pick, I mean, it shouldn't affect your pick.
It doesn't affect my pick, and they were really the least of the worries there. I think that Tyreek is running all over them. So
yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. We got the Saints versus the Cowboys. What about that game from the Saints last week? I mean, granted, you got to put a caveat onto it and say that they were playing Carolina, so it's not the craziest game ever. But I mean, in an NFL, to play against players that are making millions of dollars and you're going to win 47-10. I mean, that's
number one draft picks.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, number one draft picks. That's pretty impressive. At the same time, I mean, the Cowboys versus the Browns. I don't know if the Browns are just terrible or if the Cowboys are finding a way to click a little bit here.
Well, the Panthers were horrendous. 47-10 final there. Saints really not tested. It was 30-zip at the half. I mean, I really thought Carolina would show I mean, it's one game. I mean, it's like fantasy football. You can't get too high or too low over the first few weeks,
Yeah.
But they'll be tested this week in Big D. I think Dallas just played a really good game. I don't know if Watson is going to be pulled. I don't know who their backup is, but apparently his father passed either the night before or the morning of the game, so that could have affected his play, but they did not look good.
No.
I mean, Ford had a decent game. I think the final was 37-20, but it wasn't that close. The Saints have offensive pieces. Derek Carr played well. They have Rashid, who went for a long touchdown. Of course, Alvin Kamara looked pretty good last week. I don't know if they can stop the Cowboys' offense. I don't know if the Saints can stop them. So, with that said, give me Dallas -6.
Yeah, I got 6.5.
Minus 6.5.
Yeah, -6.5 here, and yeah, I'm taking Dallas as well at -6.5. They really impressed me, and I saw an interview this morning with Jerry Jones that said they were asking him why they signed a contract for so much with Dak, and he said his response was, "When we sign players to be at the top of their position, then we win Super Bowls." He was referring to Troy Aikman, of course, but I don't. He might not be wrong. Dak looked great, and he had like a new, fresh look to him. So with that being said, give me -6.5 for the Cowboys as well.
Okay.
Moving on.
We agree. Do we agree on something?
I think 2 in a row we agreed on. No, actually, no, one in a row we agreed on.
All right, next game is going to be Bucks at Lions. Lions won an overtime thriller 26-20 against the Rams last week, and that was with Laporta and Amon doing nothing. Jamison Williams picked the slack up, and David Montgomery. And the Bucks just destroyed Washington 37-20. Baker looked like he was back at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Played a great game. Road game at Detroit might be a little tough for them. It's 7, correct?
That's what I have.
I think it'll be close, but believe it or not, I'm going to go Bucks +7 here.
I'm going Bucks +7 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, last week was thoroughly impressive. I mean, it was almost like Baker Mayfield was playing again, like I just said about Dak, like a little bit of a rejuvenated feeling to him. I mean, he went 24 for 30 for 289 yards. I mean, that was
4 touchdowns too, right?
Yeah, 4 touchdowns. I mean, Godwin looked great with a touchdown, 8 for 8 for 83, and then Rashid White caught some passes, and then Mike Evans caught 2 touchdown passes, going for 6 for 5 for 61. It was just an all-around great game from both receivers, quarterback, and running backs. And if they're able to put together something like that, I think that it's hard for anyone to beat them. So after week 1, until they prove me wrong and show different, I got to pick them at +7. 7 points is a lot of points in the NFL. So, yeah. Give me them +7.
7 points is a lot of points, and I don't know if Detroit, I mean, maybe they figured some things out this week and will get Amon. I think, Amon was 3 for 13. 3 catches for 13 yards. That's just not Amon-like. So now if they get all the pieces involved, it could be a different story, but I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, and I think it's going to be less than 7.
For sure. Let's move on to the next one here. We got a little bit of an interesting matchup. We have to caveat this by saying Love is going to be out for the Green Bay Packers, suffering an injury.
Is he officially out?
He's out for 4 weeks.
That's not what I read. I have him. Well, it could also be a ploy too. The coach, Matt LaFleur, hasn't ruled Love out yet, but I doubt that he'll play because he was said to be out for 4 weeks. So Malik Willis should get the start. Josh Jacobs is also a little banged up in this one. Didn't practice today.
Yeah. I have everything I'm reading right now is saying that Love is out. He's expected to return in 3 to 6 weeks. There's optimism he could return sooner rather than later, but 3 weeks at the minimum.
Okay.
So I have Jordan Love out, and with that being said, I think that the gentleman from Liberty isn't going to do the trick here. I got minus right now. I got -2.5, I believe, or 3.5 for
3.5.
Yeah, minus 3.5 for the Colts, and I think they're able to win that by minus 3.5 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything you said with Malik Pitt playing and Love most likely out. Pac's run defense was tested last week, didn't do a very good job. Gave up a couple touchdowns to Barkley, another one through the air. Could be a big day for Jonathan Taylor here, and Anthony Richardson running the ball.
I mean, Anthony Richardson looked excellent last week. I mean, he looked as good as a rusher as he did as a quarterback or as a passer. So, I mean, all around great game by him last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going Colts here with Love watching the game from the sideline.
Yeah,
Colts minus 3.5.
for sure. 56 yards for Richardson last week. He was our leading rusher, so he even beat Jonathan Taylor in that
Yeah,
aspect.
Taylor didn't have a very good game last. I mean, he did score the touchdown, but let's hope he's not touchdown dependent this year because I have him on my fantasy team.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got San Francisco versus the Minnesota Vikings. What do you see?
Vikings smoked the Giants last week, but that's not saying too much.
No.
Daniel Jones, for all you Giant fans, I feel bad for you. 50% completion, 168 yards, 2 picks, including a pick six. Sounds very
Giants
very
like
Daniel Jones like. I think the Giant faithful are calling for Tony Cutlets.
Cody Cutlets.
Yeah. So, and on the other hand, I think Darnold did a great job. I think he shut a lot of the naysayers down. Now, granted, it was the Giants. He'll be tested with the 49er defense this week, but he had a good game. 19 for 24 for 208, 2-1. CMC. Latest injury report is he's dealing with an Achilles problem.
Yeah, there's an issue. They're saying that they're looking for Mason to start again. Yeah. He had a great. I mean, I don't think it really matters much. I mean, the way that he played this week was phenomenal. I mean, he came in, picked up the slack. I think you could see their game plan actively shift throughout the game. I think they were going to put Debo in the backfield, run a lot of different option plays, and maybe get him some passes coming out of the backfield, some screens, hand the ball off to him here and there, which would really change it up. But then halfway through the first quarter, you saw them go back and revert to their normal game plan, just like McCaffrey was in the game. They were able to make the handoffs like they would to McCaffrey. Debo was out wide catching some passes. It was really interesting to watch them gain confidence in their young running back and shift back into their gameplay.
Well, and I mean, CMC is CMC, right? I mean, but with the way Mason played, you would think it's the scheme, the offensive scheme they run.
Yeah.
They have a good offensive line. I'm not saying anybody they put back there is going to do well. Mason is a good talent, is a nice talent, a nice replacement. With him playing the way he did last week, it wouldn't surprise me if they held CMC out another week. And this could be a potential issue for the entire season.
Yeah.
He's not CMC, but it's nice to have maybe a 1B.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's not like a huge downgrade.
Even with CMC coming back, I don't think, even for the rest of the season, they give him the carries that he would typically get. I mean, why put him through as much torture as he would typically get in a normal season if you have this kid sitting right next to you? I mean, before him, Elijah Mitchell was one thing. He was a good running back, but I don't think he's as good as Mason here.
I almost think, well, I don't know if Mason jumped Mitchell before Mitchell got hurt, but, and I hate people getting hurt, so I'm not happy Elijah Mitchell got hurt, but I mean, it bumped this kid up to number 2, now number 1, and they don't have to rush him. I'm taking the Niners here, minus 6.5.
Yeah. With all that being said, Sam Darnold looked real strong. I think that the 49ers are going to win this game. Again, 6.5 points for Sam Darnold and the Vikings to lose by is a lot of points. So I am going to take them at +6 for Minnesota. I expect a great game here, a lot of back and forth, maybe a lot of points scored, but give me Minnesota at +6.
Is it 6 or 6.5?
I will tell you right now it is +6.
Okay.
So, yeah, give me Minnesota at +6.
Okay.
Moving on, we've got
the 4:00 games.
4:00 games, Rams versus Cardinals. I mean, another one that
That's a virtual pick'em game, right? -1 for the Cards.
Yep.
Cards look well in their first drive or two against Buffalo, and they just kind of shut it down. Buffalo and Josh just ran all over them. I mean, that's not true. I mean, they only won by I think it was 34-28, but I think there was an offensive or a return for punt or kickoff or something there. And
yeah, it was a return kickoff.
Yeah, it just looked very sluggish. Marvin Harrison, the big prospect out of Ohio State, that could be a nerve thing. I mean, that kid had to be. I mean, it's game one. It's opening day. There's a lot of nerves. He had 1 catch for 4 yards, including a big drop. He'll be fine. The Rams played well against Detroit. Cooper Kupp, 14 catches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. It looked like old Cooper Kupp from 3 or 4 years ago, getting all these receptions. Puka's out. Puka's hurt for a month, so he's not playing. Kyron Johnson, or is it Kyron Johnson or Kyron Williams? Kyron Williams, I think.
Yeah.
He did all right. This is a tough one. I'm going to take the Rams here +1. Actually, Rams money line.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams money line here as well. I will say that Marvin Harrison Jr. just wasn't getting a target. I mean, he had 3 targets. Yes, he had 1 drop. He had 1 catch. At the end of the game there, they showed a play where he was wide open in the end zone.
Wide open for a touchdown. I mean, there wasn't a guy 20 yards from him.
Yeah, and he
missed him.
They even look at him. So I really think it's more of a rookie thing on Kyler Murray not looking for him. But that being said, as they grow confidence each other and they learn each other, I do think that Kyle Murray is one of those guys who doesn't want to throw to a rookie. I think he is one of those personalities type guys that has a little bit of issues with it. But with that being said,
he better get over himself if that's the case, because
well, I mean, we've seen the issues that he's had over the years. He's had issues calling out the coaching staff and the front office and tweeting at them and doing all this stuff.
He's matured a little bit. He's also older, and he's also coming off injury and probably has a better liking for the game. Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens. I'm hoping he's not like Aaron Rodgers was up in Green Bay, where he just wouldn't throw to his rookies. And I don't see that. I think it was just one of those games. Buffalo kind of put the clamps down a little bit. Like I said, came out the first drive. Well, the first drive where Kyle Murray got the touchdown and they went up 7-0.
They look great.
They got a penalty that helped them. Some bullshit ghost call of unnecessary roughness. The guy trying to pull off them and bumped them. I mean, it was a little excessive on the penalty call and kept the drive going. But Buffalo did a pretty good job on him. I think this is going to be a really close game, but I like the Rams here.
All right, me too. Let's move on to the next one here. We got another over-under game as well. We got the Bengals versus the Chiefs, and I'll tell you what, Bengals did not look good at all in Week 1. They had a rough start to the season. What are you seeing with this one?
Well, that's what you get for holding out one of the top 3 receivers and not paying him. The guy wasn't in camp. I mean, he did play, and he did well because he's such a good talent. I mean, nobody would be able to go out there with 0 practice and do what he did. But that's why you pay the guy, and you should have paid him a month ago. Get him in camp. Get him. I don't care how good Burrow is throwing to him. There's still timing issues that you need to figure out.
Oh, I mean, they did play together for 8 years now.
They did, but but it's still practice. Burrow looked like garbage. I mean,
Terrible.
granted, he had I think one touchdown dropped, but he didn't look like himself. They lost to New England. I mean, New England's picked to be at the bottom, if not at the bottom.
Yeah.
Did a nice job against them. Of course, they were without T. Higgins. The running game non-existent. It was Chase and Zach Moss back and forth. They're trying to figure out who's the go-to guy there. KC. I mean, KC's KC. I'm just saying Chiefs -6 here.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's a question in this one. I think it's Chiefs -6 all the way around. No chance that it's closer. We also have over under 48. What do you see in that?
Well, Bengals get it together a little bit. Oh God, I'm looking at oh gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna go over.
Yeah, taking over as well. So we're in full agreement with that one with Kansas City.
And watch the Bengals come in and just blow them out.
Yeah, watch the Bengals come in and win 7-0. Just it's the opposite of what we think. But
yeah.
anyway.
Bengals aren't one of those teams that you can't figure out. Typically, that's a team that it's like Kansas City. I mean, good quarterback, good receivers, halfway decent running game. So they'll be fine, but I don't think this week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to finish it off here with the Eagles having a little bit of an extended bye. Yes, they're traveling back from Rio, but it's going to be Falcons versus the Eagles here. What are you seeing in this one?
I like the Eagles all day long. Falcons looked like garbage on Sunday. Couldn't get anything going on offense. Or every time they got something going, they'd stall.
Yeah.
And then have to either punt or field goal attempt.
Kirk Cousins looks terrible.
Oh, is it the Achilles injury? I mean, that takes a while. And it wasn't like Rodgers who got hurt in the fourth play of the year last year. Cousins didn't get hurt till later on in the season. So how healthy is he? He's also older.
Yeah.
I just didn't get the signing of the Falcons signing him. And then to pick Michael Penix Jr. in the draft with the 8th pick. Didn't understand that either.
It's like they know.
I mean, you have them as an insurance policy, I guess. So I guess maybe they do know what they're doing. I don't know. Eagles look fantastic. Barkley
looks great.
Sorry, all you Giant fans, that he probably had a Giant season in game 1. 2 rushing touchdowns, a awesome catch in the back of the end zone for 3rd touchdown. A.J. Brown scored. Hurts looked okay.
He threw for 280.
He threw for 280 and 2 touchdowns, right? Barkley and Brown.
2 interceptions as well.
Yeah, 2 at the beginning of the game. I was like, oh my gosh, we're watching 2023. What is going on? And then they kind of figured it out. But from what I saw of that game, I don't think Hurts might not rush as much this year.
I think that's
Kelsey gone now. I think and you got Barkley in the backfield. You also got a couple of backups behind Barkley that can come in and rush the ball from time to time to keep him healthy. Yeah. What'd you see from that game?
I think this is going to be a far-fetched idea, but I think what I saw, the fall off from the Eagles last year when they stopped winning games, they started losing a bunch, didn't look like the same offense. It looked like they had issues. I think what happened last year was that Hurts had a little bit of a nagging injury, and they were trying to find a way to get him to stop rushing the ball, and it was something that their offense wasn't ready for. It's something they weren't used to. And so I think after taking a step back, losing all those games, then having the full offseason, I think they were able to form the offense around a quarterback who sits back in the pocket and makes the passes. I think that's why getting Barkley was such a huge pickup, and I think that's why they did it. They knew that the quarterback is getting older. He's not old, but he might not be able to rush like he used to when he was fresh out of college. So I think him sitting back in the pocket is really going to be the way that the Eagles' offense looks moving forward, and I like it. I think it's strong as long as Barkley stays healthy.
Yeah, I also think it's a Kellen Moore thing too. I mean, the new OC for the Eagles, he was Dak's OC, he was Justin Herbert's OC. Likes to get him in the pocket and find receivers, and as a last resort, run. That's not to say Hurts is going to shut it down either. He's going to get his probably 7, 8, 9 rushing touchdowns, probably rush for 500 plus yards. But you don't have to do it on every play. The tush push. It's a good play, but I'm so tired of that. Give it to your back. Quarterbacks are fragile. Who the hell's our backup? Pickett, Kenny Pickett. We can't afford to get hurt. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
I like Kenny Pickett. I mean, not as my starting quarterback.
Oh, I love Kenny Pickett coming out of Pitt. I thought he was going to do really well. Nice kid, just didn't materialize in Pittsburgh. And now Pittsburgh has their own problems now with Fields and old Russell Wilson. Although I think they did beat somebody, guy had 6 field goals. They won 18-15. Boswell.
Yeah, they did. But they're starting Fields this week, just an FYI. Yeah. I think that concludes us.
Did we make a pick? I'm taking Eagles -6.5.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a given. I'm taking Eagles -6.5 as well. I do want to read back a pick that I had earlier this week. Won a pretty big parlay here. Put down $20, won $700. Wanted to read it back to you. It was an interesting one. So out here in Texas, we can't bet on the games. We can only bet on players to do things. So it's more like a fantasy type of thing. So this was
Tyreek to get pulled out of a car by a cop.
This one was
race to punch his wife in the head.
Jeez.
Which I don't condone. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so this one was all kickers combining for things. So it was the Young Ho Koo and Chris Boswell combining for 128 yards. They had 297. It was Joey Sly and Evan McPherson from New England and Cincinnati combining for 127. They had 155.
Wow.
It was Dustin Hopkins versus Brandon Aubrey combining for 130. They had 245. I mean, everything hit by over 100 yards.
Wow.
At least 20 yards. It was Dickerson and Carlson for having over 129. They had 135. That was the closest I had. It was Moody versus Greg Zuerlein for having over 120 yards. They had 250. And then lastly, it was Jason Myers and Will Lutz combining for at least 126, and they had 190.
Wow.
20.
Is that a pick on DraftKings?
It's on Prize Picks.
Oh, so is that something? Because I can do DraftKings in Virginia. Is that something I've never seen where you pick kickers to combine for yards? That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I have another one for this week with the same type of thing going down. So we will see what happens. But
congratulations.
Seems like they hit pretty easily. I mean, not gonna lie, the majority of those hit towards the end of the first quarter. I mean,
how many kicks though? I saw this weekend just a bunch of them were over 50 yards.
Oh,
did you see a couple of over 60 yards?
You see Aubrey?
Aubrey's the man.
At the end of the first half, he lined up, kicked, and made a 66-yarder, and they called it back because there was offside or delay game, and then they moved him back to 71 yards, and he lined up to kick it. At the very last second, coach was like, "What are we doing? Just get off the field. You're great, but you're not that great." So,
has he missed yet?
I don't believe so.
He was a rook last year, right? And he made everything last year, and he had several. I mean, you have him on your fantasy. He made several kicks last week.
He's great. Yeah, I mean, I think every kick that he made got me 4 points because it was over 50 yards. But yeah. But anyway, that concludes our picks. Concludes our picks for the week. Hoping to do great this week. I think we have a lot of different picks, but I think we're gonna really nail it as we really dial in what we're
One
seeing
of
with these
us
teams.
is.
One of us is for sure.
A lot of different this week.
Yeah, but I think we're really dialed it into what we think is going on with this season, and excited to provide those results next week.
Sounds good. Another pleasure doing this with you, buddy. And yeah, good luck this week.
Yeah, good luck. I'll see you later.
All right, buddy.